I think that it's important to start when we're talking about writing reports and the best way to write reports. I think we need to look at the practical importance of your report. Now, you're literally writing for the future about the past. So when you're writing a report, writing a narrative, a final narrative report, you're literally writing about things that have already occurred for people to read and review in the future. So you're writing for the future about the past. Number two, it creates an investigative record. You as an investigator are going to write a report about the past that freezes things in time and actually creates a record of something that has occurred. It's a legal record that can be referred to for time and eternity as to something that occurred. Now, it could be grouped with other cases. It may be a standalone, or it may be something that just needs to be proven that something that occurred, maybe for a court case now, maybe for a court case in the future. And that brings us to number three. It's used in court presentations. Now, some reports that you do are informational reports, and it literally will just go in the file and have nothing else looked at. But many of the reports you do, especially investigation reports, are going to end up in court. And your report will be scrutinized and used by lawyers and insurance companies and judges and other police officers. And so it also creates the report to tell the jury what happened. So the report literally talks about the past. It records something in time so that it can be presented to a jury. And your facts of the case at the time you wrote it should be factual and clear so a jury can understand it later on. Fourthly, it goes to assess civil liability. Now, sometimes that's civil liability for something that you as an investigator did, but many times that's more talking about a civil liability for like a motor vehicle accident. So if you're working at a motor vehicle crash where a fatality occurred and you are talking about injuries to the body or injuries to the vehicle, and then someone else writes a report about how the accident occurred and the dynamics of the reconstruction, insurance companies are going to use that in civil lawsuits as to who was right, who was wrong, who gets some amount of money. But then also insurance companies will use your reports for life insurance. Sometimes if they want to dispute whether it was an accident or a suicide, or if they want to talk about the time that it occurred. Maybe the insurance policy pays out in 2 years, but it was 2 days shy of that. Your police record, your coroner record will be what shows the time that the death occurred and the situation that occurred. And so insurance companies, it can also be used in arson and things like that. So it's used to assess civil liabilities. And then number five, it's used as a historical record for analysis and cold cases. So your report will go into a database that people can look at years from now and decide our crime rates. Maybe it's just at the end of the year, they look back on the year and say, well, our burglaries were up so much, our homicides were up so much, our drug arrests were down or up. Well, that's an analysis. So your report is used for analysis. Now, in death cases, it certainly can be used for cold cases. So when the case isn't solved and there is no suspect arrested and the case goes cold, then it sets in a box. And let's say 10, 15, 20 years later, these cases are reopened and re-looked at by a cold case squad. Well, your report that you write today has to withstand 50 years worth of scrutiny, because if someone opens that box up, let's say 10 years from now, you're retired, you're gone, maybe you're even dead, and they have to read your report needs to be so clear and so concise that they can read the report and know exactly what you knew and did at the time. And one of the problems with reports is we write a report knowing what we know in our mind, but we don't get it all out on the report. Because to us, our mind reads between the lines and we know what we're meaning. So it's important to look at your report to be sure that it is full and complete to where anyone could pick it up and read it and know what you know what you're trying to talk about and say in that report. So number five was historical record. So let's go over them again. Top five. Writing for the future about the past. It creates an investigative record. Reports are used for court presentation. Reports are used to assess civil liabilities. And number five, it's used as a historical record, whether it be for analysis or for cold cases. That's the practical importance of a report.